Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in this world, everybody. I hope all is well with you. As she said, my name is Jason Porter. I'm hoping you all can hear me well. So today we're going to talk about InfraWorks. We're also going to talk about, well, today is more of a concept to design type of a webinar where I'm going to begin in InfraWorks. The workflow is what I'm looking at here. We're going to begin in InfraWorks. We're going to take it out of InfraWorks, go into Civil 3D. We're going to use vehicle tracking to lay out a parking lot, and we're also going to use vehicle tracking to analyze driveway right-of-ways and tools to get away around around buildings and parking stalls. Let's just get started here. Let me get over to here. So if you're familiar with the Austin area, that's where I'm at, Austin, Texas. This is the site that I've proposed here. This is just something I made up on the fly here. We are looking to do, the idea here is we're going to develop this site into some sort of a shopping area, maybe like a big box store like Home Depot or Lowe's or Best Buy or something. And we're going to use this as our go-by. This is Ranch Road 620. I've got Bullock Hollow Road, and this is Vista Park Drive. And right over here is Lake Travis, if you're just to orientate yourself with where we're going to be. So I don't need this anymore. Let's head over to InfraWorks. Okay. Let me get back to the home page here because I usually don't like to incorporate PowerPoint into my presentations. Those of you who know me and know me well, I like to present everything live and as I go, but there are some things with InfraWorks in which I have to incorporate a PowerPoint because of time frame. So I usually begin a project using the model builder, and with the model builder I'm able to zoom in, scroll over to the site that I want. I can even type up here in the location. I can type a location of where I want to be, whether it be an address or a landmark, and I can get to the area that I want. Once I get to the area, I can use these tools to figure out how I want to cut that area out for me to use. So let me head over to the PowerPoint real quick so I can show you what I've done prior to uh, this webinar, because there's some setup here. So let's go over here. Okay, so I zoomed into the area of interest that I've already told you about, and the reason I made this PowerPoint is this right here. I start the download at 3:35 a.m. Yes, I do a lot of work at night. Okay, so I started at 3:35 a.m. and I submitted it to Autodesk, and depending on the size that you submit to Autodesk, depending on the area that you submit, will drive basically how fast you get it back. Also, don't forget traffic on the internet and the cloud and everything, because I got this one fairly fast. I didn't want to take the chance while we're in the middle of a webinar, so I submitted it early. I got it back early, but it's the very next step that takes the time, the generating the model. Once I got it back, it took a couple of minutes for this to open and generate, okay? So now that I have it, let me close this down. This is the site that I got back from InfraWorks, from my submission, okay? And by default, it comes in looking something like this, okay? And as you can see, it's got terrain to it, okay? InfraWorks pulls in GIS data from all these free resources that are out there. So my roads that have come in right here, my roads have come in from freely distributed GIS data out there. My building locations and the fact that they're there, those have come in from GIS data as well. Now, they will not look and act exactly like the buildings that you see. It gives them some sort of a random facade in order for the buildings to just look like they're buildings. And notice they're all the same height. That's a discussion for a different day. Okay, but as you can see down here in the background, I got terrain and I got the aerial image. I've also, to make this easier on us, I've made my, let me see here, let me move this up there. Okay, I've made a home tab for me to use so I can focus in the area that I want. So what I usually do is begin by analyzing the site that I want. And in this case, I want to bring in a road, just an access road to get behind my site in this area, and this is where my building's going to be. And possibly, the parking lot, which I'll finish off later. Now, there's several different workflows you can do here, but I'm going to just show you a very basic one. So the first thing that I'm going to do is analyze the terrain, and to do so, let's take a look at the terrain themes here. Now, I've already got one created. Let me take this one and delete that one. That shouldn't be there. Okay, I've already got one created, and I can tell you by looking at this quickly, where's my highs, where's my lows. I need to know where water is getting out from. So I can do, let's just do a basic watershed analysis. Well, it's real simple to create one of these terrains. I mean, I'm just going to, I launched the terrain button here, and then I'm going to click on the add new theme here, and I'm using a very basic HSV color type of terrain, and that equally divides it into, however, actually I'm not using that one, I'm using a different one. I'm using I forget which one, but I'm using the AutoCAD one. That's the one that I like, okay? The one will be the one that I use here, and the reason that is because it takes AutoCAD colors, and even though this will look very psychedelic, I can definitely get an idea of where my contours are, okay? So I can tell you right now, there's my high spot, there's my low spots, way over here, and in this area where my site is, I need to figure out how is water getting from here to about here, okay? Because that's the way the water's flowing. So the next thing I would do is come in here, and I'm going to turn off that theme. I don't need that anymore. I get an idea here. And I would come to my watersheds, and I would create a watershed. Now, this is where I jump back to the PowerPoint, and the reason being is, is because the watershed analysis takes a little bit of time. And when I mean a little bit of time, I don't want you to think it's going to take 20, 30 minutes to do this. It actually took just about 2 minutes for me to do this, but I didn't want that 2 minutes for you to be waiting. So I'm going to drop a pin, and where that pin is, that's the low point of my watershed, or the direction of the area that I want water to flow. So where do I want to see, how does water get to that point? And then it runs the analysis on the cloud. So you must have cloud access, okay, to do the watershed analysis. Okay, and so we are here. I have already run the watershed for you. Like I said, I just click on Create Watershed. It asks me, it does say that you're going to use Cloud Credit, and then it asks you where you want to drop that pin. So I've already done that, and I created a proposal that shows that watershed. Okay, so let's just wait for this proposal to switch over. And there is my watershed in my area, okay? And there's my site still right here. So two things here. Number one, notice how it's got a nice perfect cutoff right over here. We all know that's not how the watershed probably is. That's due to the fact that when I took my model, I should have taken more on this side. So just so you know that you might want to get a bigger area than what you want if you're trying to solve for a larger watershed. Okay, and the second part is this watershed. Let's go ahead and select this, and let's go ahead and run some edits on this so you can see here. Okay, so I can come in here and take a look at this watershed and solve for my 100-year floods here, my peak flows here. I just type in my runoff coefficient, and in this case I'm going to use 0.25. That's for natural ground in this area. And then we're going to do a rainfall intensity of, I'll say 6 inches per hour, okay? And by doing so, I can tell you that at this point right here, that's where that pin is that I dropped. At this point right here, at 6 inches per hour, we're going to have 270.5 cubic feet per second hitting that point. So that's just something to quickly analyze, because remember, folks, the strength of InfraWorks, one of the biggest strengths that it has is preliminary design. I can get an idea of what's going on before we set foot out there. I haven't set any surveyors out there, haven't had to run through and get FEMA maps, get anything like that. I've got it all right here for me, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is the next thing I did was sketch in a road, and to sketch in a road is quite easy. I'll show you what I've got done so far, and I'll get over to the PowerPoint as well. So here's my proposed site, okay? Let that switch over, okay? So there's my proposed site. Let me tell you what I've done here. I use the basic roads here, the design roads that they have, and I sketched in a road using the sketch tools. It's not hard to sketch in a local road, and you pick your style, and I'll drop one in right here, here, and then you can just sketch in your road however you need it to come out, and then when you're done you can drop it. I can connect it out there for you. We have a whole other webinar that we've done in the past on roads, or if not, there's videos out there. As you can see, it does the intersections for you as well, okay? And I don't need that road, so I'm just going to simply select it and delete it. So that, in addition with the building there, again, let's talk about the Revit model here. I have a Revit model that I brought in. Okay, now I am not the Revit guru. I'm not going to act like I know Revit very well. I know the basics of the basics here. So I worked with a friend of mine, one of my coworkers, who does know Revit better than I do, and I said, I need a building, and we just sketched out a building in AutoCAD. I took that building from AutoCAD, we took it into Revit, and in about say 10 minutes we created this Revit building, okay? And it took long because I was the guy asking all these questions, what does this do and how does that happen? So it could have probably been done a lot faster had I not been interrupted. But once I get the Revit model, I can import it. But if you look right here, that is a cloud-based import. So it's actually going to do some work on the cloud and pull it in. And that's why I'm doing this again with the PowerPoint, because I don't want you to sit there and wait while it processes and connects to the building file. And then once it's in, it has to process again, okay? And again, you do need internet connection here, okay? So once I have it in, I configure the building, okay? I basically right-click on the building, and this is the name of the building that I brought in. I configure it. I make sure it's going to be a building. I put it in the coordinate system. I manually typed in that coordinate system. And then because I did not know how to geolocate it in Revit, and I was doing this real quickly, I just manually interactively placed that building, in which it dropped into my site as so. And all I did was use this Gizmo right here to move and rotate my building inside of InfraWorks. Okay, let's go back to InfraWorks. Okay, and that leaves my building right here. Okay, so I've got my proposed site, I've got my proposed road, I've got existing roads. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to take this out of InfraWorks, bring it into Civil 3D so it can finish off the analysis. I could do more here. I could come in here and add some sort of coverage area. I can add trees, but remember the whole idea here is I want to get this out of here as fast enough as possible so I can do the real design. I could also bring that stuff back later, but right now we're just going to go from here into Civil 3D. Okay. Now I do have to say one thing before we go to Civil 3D. You saw me use these proposals. Okay, and to create a proposal, it's add new. If you haven't seen other webinars where we do proposals, then we could talk about that in later if need be. But whatever proposal that you have current when you close out InfraWorks, that's going to be the proposal that Civil 3D is going to look at when it wants to bring in the data. Civil 3D will not bring in that Revit model, and Civil 3D will not bring in my aerial image, but there are workarounds for that, and I'll show you that here in a little while. Okay, so let me go ahead and get out of here, and let me head over to Civil 3D. Okay, now this is a blank drawing. Okay, this is drawing one from scratch. There's nothing fancy about this file. I am going to set my coordinate system first. I'm going to come over to drawing one, and I'm going to edit my drawing settings, and I'm going to use the coordinate system TX83-CF. That's the same coordinate system that was in the other one. Okay, and when I set my coordinate system, if you notice my geolocation, my map area, all this stuff gets turned on, and that's because I'm signed into my Autodesk 360 account. If you're not using Autodesk 360 at least to bring in aerial images, then I might you might want to think about that. It's free to have a 360 account. If you're on subscription, you probably already have a login to 360. If you work for a company that is on subscription, then whoever your coordinator is, your software coordinator, that person can probably create you an account so you can have access to their credentials as well. So before I do that, I'm going to come over here and do the insert under the insert tab, and I'm going to actually insert the InfraWorks model. And I'm going to click InfraWorks model. I'm going to go browse to the location in which I have that SQLite file. Okay, and I can bring in the entire model, or I can go and bring in, I'm down here. I can bring in the entire model, or I can bring in just the area that I want. Okay. I could also change the coordinate system, but there's no point in doing that here. This is the coordinate system of the model, and this is the coordinate system of my drawing. Okay. I don't want to bring in the extents of my model. I'm just going to go select my area of interest, and I'm going to click Select Area. And when I do that, the aerial image pops up, and that is because I am logged into that 360 account. Okay, so as you can see, I'm looking in the same general area that I was earlier. Okay, so that's why I said Civil 3D won't bring in that aerial image, but it uses something similar to work with. Okay, it uses the Bing imagery. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say I want the area in this location because my site is there, and let this process. Okay. This one might take a second or so, just because I played with this a couple of times and I don't know why it just takes a little bit longer. It's talking to that aerial image. But before I click Open Model, this is where a lot of people get trigger happy and they say, hey, let's open the model and we're good to go. I want to refine my selection set. You might want to pay attention to this. Okay, here's why. In my InfraWorks model, I have the existing ground surface, and every road has its own surface as well, and then the proposed road that I drew in there has a proposed surface as well. I may not want those. Also, it's going to bring in all these alignments. These are alignments, and all I need is the main road, Ranch Road 620. I need that Vista Park Road, that one that was on the north side, and I need the road that I sketched in. That's that design road. So it's going to bring in these alignments for me. I'm just letting you know this because if you have everything toggled on, you will get overkill, and you'll end up spending time trimming and erasing and getting rid of what you don't need. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click Open the Model, and it's going to bring it in, and right there is my surface. I'm going to go turn off my aerial image so we can start getting clear here. I'm going to come over here to the Geolocation tab, and I'm going to come out here and just turn off my map right now. Okay, but there is my surface, my existing ground surface, in which for the rest of this presentation I don't need. I'm going to come over here to my surface properties, and I'm going to set that to no display. Okay, so I am left with this alignment being, and if I just hover, you'll see that's an alignment for Vista Park Drive. This is the alignment for Ranch Road 620, and this is my proposed alignment. Okay. Now, I would normally at this point finish off my sketch, get in the things I need, but in this case, we had a napkin sketch that we already drew up in AutoCAD, and I'm going to go insert the rest of that sketch over here. Once it starts browsing. Okay, and here's my site outline. Okay, and I'm just going to insert it at 0, 0. I've already got it at the coordinate zone it needs to be and the location needs to be. So here is my building. I've got some parking bays here. I've got to lay out my parking lot, okay, and then I'm going to see if a truck can access its way into the parking stalls on this side of the building. Okay, I've got some gray lines here, these color 8 lines here, which represent a guide for me to follow when I'm laying out my parking stalls, and I'll show you why in a little while. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is let's jump to vehicle tracking. Now we've gone from InfraWorks, we've gone to Civil 3D, and now we're going to use vehicle tracking. Okay, And what I'm going to do is come over here and lay out a new row. Now there's a whole bunch of settings in InfraWorks that we can talk about in some sort of training or privately if need be, but once I haven't, every setting that I'm using in here is straight out of the box. I haven't configured it to be fancy, okay? This is the way InfraWorks runs the first time. When I look at the InfraWorks and I say, let's go create a new parking row, it asks me, where in the world are you going to create this? So we're in the US. I'm going to use this ITE guideline for parking. It's the first one, the basic one. And to tell you the truth, I don't know the difference between these two standards. I've looked at them both, and I can't see straight out what the difference is just yet. I know there's a difference, but I haven't figured that out yet, okay? Notice this pool area right here. Okay, that's going to get populated here in a little while, and you'll see what I'm going to do here. Okay, so I'm going to say ITE guidelines, parking facility location and design, and I'm going to hit proceed. Okay, and I'm going to give this a name. Okay, let's just call this let's go big box parking. Okay, and I'm going to click OK. And here's some more settings here. Basically, I'm going to take the defaults here, but 90-degree angles is what I want, and I'm going to click OK. Okay. So when I go to lay out the parking, I have the option to do the left bays only, the right bays only, or both. Okay. Do I do two-way traffic, or do I do ending at the start, starting at the start to end? What are the angles again? If I want to change the angles, which are also controlled up here. As you can see, we have different angles we can look at. There's all these settings you can play with here. Islands, do I have start islands, bend islands, end islands, okay? I'm going to take the defaults, and I'm going to just come in here, and I'm going to snap to this endpoint, and I'm going to come over here and snap to this endpoint, and snap to this endpoint. Notice I am missing the curve, and I'll tell you why in a little while, okay? I'm going to snap to this endpoint, and this endpoint, and I'm going to come over here and snap here. Now when I right click to enter, I do get the option which side do I want. So I could have done left only, and I could have just easily laid it out. But if you notice, those red arrows are asking me which side do you want. I'm going to click onto the inside, and I'm going to hit escape, and then you're going to see there's my first row of parking here. Okay, let's go fix this right here. Okay, you see this grip right here? I can grab that and drop it right here in the middle, and my parking gets updated. I'm going to come over here, and also look what happens when I grab that. Look down here in my tray. Do you see where it says bays and rows and bays and drawing? As I start laying this out, it's keeping a running tally for me on how much parking I have in there. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is do new parallel road. Okay, and look at my pool. That's the one that I just created earlier. I can click it and I can proceed. Okay. Now, normally I would pick parking here, but as you can see, if I do parallel parking, it's trying to keep it as so I can't go to the inside now. So that's where my guideline comes in here. So let me go back to the parking. Let me go back to the big box, and let's proceed with that. And I'm going to use this as my guideline. Okay. And it's not perfectly parallel, but that's fine. Let's zoom in here, and I'm going to come in here, and you see these blue lines right there? Those are my aisles here. So as I get close to the one that I want, the first one has to be eyeballed in there because of the fact that I didn't select the same parking as the original. So I'm just eyeballing it in there. I'm going to hit enter, okay, because I took both. Now you're going, well, that's a lot of parking and they're overrunning. That's okay. I'm going to use the grips to pick and go to the perpendicular, and I'm going to be perpendicular to this line as well. Okay, and there's my next set of parking. Okay, now I'm going to run that parallel again. I'm going to come over here parallel, and I'm going to do the big box parking and proceed, and I'm going to select this one. And notice now, because I selected this one, I cannot get any closer to this parking than the aisle width. I can get further as far as I want, but the moment that I get to that blue line, it stops. So there's my width, and I'm going to hit enter to accept both. And again, keep track of how many stalls I'm running here. So let's do a couple of more times. And you know what? I could make it my default. So if I come in here and do this again, I can make this my default, and then I can proceed. I won't be prompted again because it will be my default. Okay, so let's say parking. Let's say parking standard, and hit OK. And I'm going to click OK here, just making sure that my units match. And I'm going to say, let's be there, let's go there, boom. And then we'll run it again. And because I made it my default, I don't have to be prompted anymore. So when I come over here and do the parking parallel, it automatically takes me in here, and there we go. Okay. Now, I'm infringing on my area here, but that's what these grips here are for. I can take these grips here. I can change the angle of my island if need be. Let me bring that over here. Okay, I can pull this island, actually not that one, this one. I can pull this, I can change the side angles if need be. I can pull it down if need be. You get the point here. And then I can come in here and align this as I want. I can also move these. As you can see, I got way too much space. So there will be some cleanup that I need to do here, but it's not that hard to clean up. I mean, I can change those on the fly with ease. Even if I wanted something like that. I don't know. You decide. Okay. Next thing we're going to do, I'm not done yet. I'm going to go ahead and, since it is my standard, I am going to come over here and do a new row. And I'm going to lay it out in this endpoint, come over here to this endpoint, this endpoint, this endpoint here, this endpoint there, and I'll drop it right here to the inside. And then since it's already highlighted, let's fix those bays right here, those islands and those corners here. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is do the new parallel, a new row right here to right now there, and then I'm going to just drop this back. Now, why am I doing this? Because I can't snap to that blue line, but that's fine. Here's what I'm going to do now. Those gray lines are my guideline, okay? And the reason I'm showing this to you is because even though I can select this and I can copy this, I want you to also take a look at the fact that my parking bays will update with when I snap to this endpoint and this endpoint. You see my parking count going in there? It's updating, so it's keeping tabs on all that for me. Now, at the end of all this, all those guidelines and everything, I don't really need that. What I want to do, when you start laying out parking lots, there are layers that are automatically created. So I can start cleaning those up. I don't want to clean up the bays, but I'm just showing you what you can do. And I created that layer called guide. Let me see, guide, and I don't need those anymore. Okay. So very simplistic stuff, nothing fancy here. Okay. I can come over here now, and I can edit the row, edit the parking here. Let's edit a parking bay. I'm going to select, let's just say right here, I want handicap parking. Okay. This one is one that I want, and I'm going to make that disabled parking. That they call it disabled is handicap over there. And I'm going to say okay, and hit close, and it should have prompted a handicap parking. Let me see. Let's see. Let's do this one. Disabled. Hit OK. There we go. And then I'm going to hit this one right here. And what I'm going to do now is change this to disabled, and I'm going to copy to that one, 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 and you get the point there. So I can start laying out my disabled parking as well. Next thing I'm going to do is let's do one last row right here, a new row. Let's come from here. I'm going to say let's come around to this endpoint right here, to this endpoint right there, and just right here. Okay, to the inside. Let's grip edit that back to here. Okay. So again, it's generating all these parking spaces for me. It's keeping a running tally, and even to the point where I can generate a parking report. I can get a report of based off the standards that I have. Okay, I have so many disabled parking. I got parking lot, large cars, my zone 134, total of 477 parking stalls. And this is because I ran two different types of parking. There's my using parking standard. Remember, I created those two types of standards when I came over here and said new row, and it created the default was parking standard. The other default I created, well, the default I used was big box parking, and then the other one I used was parking standard. So as you can see, it breaks it up into two separate groups. Okay, so you might want to be aware of that so you can understand how you want to name those standards. But it does give me the running total, and I could export that out if I wanted to a report, to some CSV file if need be, or HTML or text. Okay, so now let's talk about another part of vehicle tracking, which is the vehicle part, the vehicle area where I can come in here, and let me tell you what I just did first. I clicked on the auto drive arc, and by doing so, two windows came up initially, but I closed them down. It's okay. I'm going to get this one back. I'm going to use, you choose where you are in this world, okay? And I'm going to be in the U.S. design, the statewide, and there's a 2011 customary, and then you have all these items here, okay? So the one that you have a bus, articulated bus, you've got intercity buses, you've got a motorhome. What I'm going to be using is this SU40. It's a single unit truck. It's basically a delivery truck, okay? And I'm going to hit proceed, and I can make that my default as well, okay? I'm going to hit no at this point, and I'm going to click OK to get my units correct. Now, this represents a block of my truck, okay? And when I drop it, it asks me what direction am I going to go, and I'm going to go in this direction, and then this box will appear, okay? This box is think of it as your last-ditch effort to make some changes, okay? So I can come in here and change the location if I want to move it somewhere else, or rotate it somewhere else, or change the axle orientation, or change the speed. There's a lot of little settings in here, okay? But I'm just taking the default, and I'm going to hit proceed, okay? And by doing so, I've got this image of my vehicle. Now, as you can see, it's creating this green trail behind it. That's the body envelope of the actual vehicle. So as I click, it's telling me that's where your vehicle body is going to be following the minimum clearances it needs. So I'm going to take a wide left turn into this area right here to see, and as you can see, I'm doing something wrong there. So I can fix that by easily coming back to the original one and clicking, and I can always back out to the original by just going back to the original body and clicking. So let's change this here. Let's come around here. Actually, I may not need even need a wide left here. Let's just turn into there. Oh, I snapped to something. Yeah, that's another thing. You might want to turn your O snaps off. Let me turn my O snaps off real quick. Okay. Now let's do this. Let's come around this way, and let's clear. And I'll fix this in a little while. I'll show you what I'm going to do, because I am infringing on that curb and gutter there. Okay, so now let's straight it out. Okay, and let's come back around this way, and what I want to do here is I need to make sure I can get into that parking lot without killing the curb. Okay, and we'll come take a look at that here in a little while. Now the idea here is I need to come around to the back of the parking lot. I need to line myself up here, and I need to back myself up here. You notice how the back of that, or the color has now changed slightly from the original, and that's because of the fact that I am going backwards now. I am going in reverse. So I can come in here and I can line this up as needed, and let me do this one thing right there. When I'm done, I hit enter. And basically, I've got myself a path that I'm following. The green represents the body, The red represents the axles, or the wheelbase, I should say. Okay, I am infringing on here, so these X's along the way I can use to change that up. Let me pull this in slightly. That might be where we need to go. I can also use these plus symbols to add more. So if I need to add, if I hover over this, I can insert a target point. These are the target points. Is where the person turning the vehicle will be looking at or trying to get toward without hitting too much here. And I'm barely making that there, a little too close for comfort, so I might just make that in here, and I might add another target point right there if need be. Let me see that. I'm okay there. Okay, so it's a little, don't drive in any trucks that I drive, or don't ride in any trucks that I drive, but that's why I don't get paid to drive big trucks. But you can see there. So now let's talk about things. So we've gone from InfraWorks, we've gone to Civil 3D, and we've gone to vehicle tracking. And you see how fast we've done it. You see the report that I get. This is just the added bonus. I remember I had that Revit model. Well, in Revit, I exported out the file to an ADSK file. And by doing so, I was able to, let me go select the file. I'm able to bring in an ADSK file. So if you're wondering how to get a Revit model into Civil 3D, here's your answer. Okay, in Revit, export it out to ADSK, come over here, and because I didn't geolocate that correctly in Revit, I'm going to do specify on drawing, and I'm going to finish that. I'm going to drop my building right there. Okay, and there it is. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the align command, and I'm going to align it with the 2D. Let me turn my OSTAPs back on. The 2D model that I originally created. Just drop that in there. And what I've got here, just so you know, is I've actually got a 3D model of that building now. There's my parking, my loading docks, okay, on the building. And let's change this to conceptual design so you can see. There's the loading docks in my building, okay, and it looks like my truck's hitting that loading dock where I want it. But let's, now if you want to put the sizzle on this, you basically you want to show this to a client, right? Let's go back to the top view here, and let's zoom in here. Right here, I'm going to position myself so I can see this, okay? And let's see there. Okay, so I'm going to animate this by going back to the vehicle tracking, and I'm going to click animate, and I'm going to speed this up so you can see it. Let's go 16, yeah. And let's proceed. And as you look right here, there's my truck coming. It's turning around. I can get an idea of how it's going to look in there. And if you don't like it in 2D, let's close. There it is backing up. Okay. And if you don't like it in 2D, we can always change it to a 3D perspective. And now let's animate that. That's my geo marker. I got to turn that off. But let's keep that running at 16. Let's hit OK. There's my truck coming in there. Turning around, went around, and then there it's going to come back and back up. And as you can see, you get yourself your parking, your vehicle parked. I don't need to save it right now, right where it needs to be. Just some really cool tools. So that's all I have today. Mainly what I want you to grasp here is the workflow process and how I did some of this stuff. Okay. Get that workflow down and you'll see that it's not that hard.